The average life expectancy in the early 16th century was only around 30 years old. It was unfortunately normal to lose children to a myriad of preventable illnesses. People were terrified of deadly illnesses, often thinking they were a punishment from God. Tudor England was only a regional power, a far cry from the global dominance it would later achieve. Henry VIII was notorious for his willingness to order executions. The Muslim Ottoman Empire was a significant threat to Europe during the Tudor period. Tudor society was deeply unequal, with a rigid hierarchy where the monarchy and nobility held immense power. Tudor sumptuary laws regulated clothing based on a person's social class. Life heavily revolved around farming. Most people depended on agriculture for food, work, and survival. In Tudor England, girls could legally marry as young as 12 years old. Boys could marry at 14. The brank, or scold's bridle, was a metal muzzle used to silence women accused of gossiping or speaking out too freely. Life for women in Tudor England was restrictive, with limited rights and subservience to men. Discipline in Tudor schools was strict and harsh, with frequent use of corporal punishment for mistakes or disobedience. In Tudor England, most girls did not attend school. Their education was usually limited to household skills. Dueling was an illegal yet common way for nobles to settle disputes. Superstition was widespread, with beliefs in witchcraft, omens, and magical cures influencing daily life and even laws. Dearth, or food shortages, led to rising prices and social unrest, sometimes sparking rebellion. The Catholic Church was very powerful in England, until weakened by Henry VIII's Reformation. Tudor England's population was small, rising from just 2.2 million in 1485 to under 4 million by 1603. Tudor people did not bathe often, instead, just washing their face and hands, and combing their hair and beards. When they did bathe, families would take turns to use the same water. Since water was often contaminated, everyone, including children, drank wheat beer daily to stay hydrated. The alcohol in the beer was naturally antibacterial. Tudor football was more like mob violence than a sport, played in streets and fields with almost no rules. Broken bones and deaths were common. Wealthy Tudors wore clothes dyed with toxic substances like arsenic and lead, which could cause deadly illnesses over time. Henry's break with Rome risked invasion from Catholic Europe, but plundered monastery wealth funded a network of coastal forts. Many can still be seen today. It was under the Tudors that a recognizably English culture began to develop, epitomized by Shakespeare's plays and the flowering of country house architecture. Only 1 person in 10 was expected to make it to old age, and that meant making it to 40. Card games were popular, and the Tudors loved to gamble. The modern-day pack of cards is based on the clothes worn in court from Elizabeth I's time. Historians agree that the great theme of Tudor history was the Reformation, the transformation of England from Catholicism to Protestantism. Henry VIII is considered the father of the English Navy. He was the first king to organize the Navy as a permanent force, with a permanent administrative and logistical structure funded by tax revenue. He laid the groundwork for England's later naval dominance. Homosexuality was illegal in Tudor England, punishable by death under the 1533 Buggery Act. By the 1530s, most monasteries, except for stricter orders, had become wealthy landowners with few inhabitants. Rievaulx Abbey, once home to 650 monks, had shrunk to just about 20. This greed and corruption played into Henry's hands when he decided to dismantle the wealthy monasteries. Scientific and medical understanding was limited in Tudor times. Doctors used bloodletting, leeches, and herbal remedies, often making illnesses worse. Bear baiting, public executions, and violent sports like Tudor football were popular pastimes. The House of Tudor united the Lancastrians and Yorkists through Henry VII's claim and marriage to Elizabeth of York, ending the Wars of the Roses and bringing some stability to the realm by uniting those rival factions. The Tudor period saw the gradual evolution of England's medieval army into a larger firearm-wielding force supported by powerful ships and formidable gun forts to protect the country from the threat of invasion. The Renaissance influenced Tudor England through advances in education, art, literature, science, and exploration, shaping a more modern, intellectual society. The introduction of the printing press to England in 1476 by William Caxton accelerated freedom of thought and expression, and the Church's powerful grip on society began to wane. The Tudor period saw the first English Bible translated from Latin, making Holy Scripture accessible beyond church control. William Tyndale and Miles Coverdale led the effort, with the first printed edition in 1535. During the 1550s and 1560s, under Mary I and Elizabeth I, England began the plantations of Ireland, seizing Irish land and settling English colonists. Queen Elizabeth I backed Sir Humphrey Gilbert and Sir Walter Raleigh in attempts to colonize America, but these initial efforts failed. Nonetheless, these expeditions were milestones in the Age of Discovery. Tudor monarchs debased coinage, especially Henry VIII and Edward VI, reducing silver content to fund wars, causing inflation and economic instability. Some historians link Henry VIII's erratic behavior, mood swings, paranoia, and aggression in his later reign to brain damage from a severe 1536 jousting accident, which left him unconscious for 2 hours and may have caused frontal lobe damage. Other possible factors include obesity, diabetes, and unproven syphilis. Henry VIII's 6 marriages and quest for a male heir reshaped Tudor society, triggering the English Reformation, political turmoil, economic shifts, and dynastic instability. Henry VIII was fixated on a male heir to secure the Tudor dynasty, as women ruling alone were seen as weak and vulnerable to rebellion. England had never had a successful reigning queen, and the Wars of the Roses had shown how unstable a disputed succession could be. Henry feared a daughter's rule would lead to civil war and the collapse of Tudor power. Elizabeth I, the longest reigning Tudor monarch, ruled for 45 years and is often associated with a golden age of culture, wealth, and exploration. Elizabeth I's naval victory over the 130-ship Spanish Armada was a significant event, marking a major step towards England's newfound mastery of the seas. Just 60 Spanish ships made it back to Spain, less than half of the original Armada. Although the English had more ships at about 200 total, they were generally smaller, faster, and more maneuverable than the Spanish galleons. England did not lose a single ship in the engagements. Food inequality was stark. While nobles gorged on meat-heavy feasts, sometimes to the point of gout, peasants survived on coarse bread, pottage, and whatever scraps they could grow or glean. Starvation wasn't rare during bad harvests, and the poor were often blamed for their own suffering. Religious upheaval killed thousands. Henry VIII's break from Rome and the subsequent swings between Protestantism and Catholicism under his children led to mass executions. Ordinary people could be burned or hanged for owning the wrong Bible or saying the wrong prayers, depending on who was in charge. Piracy was state-sponsored. Tudor England relied on sea dogs like Francis Drake to raid Spanish ships and fund the treasury. These pirates were knighted, not hanged, as long as they shared the loot. It was a thin line between criminal and hero. Drake's raids nearly sparked war. His raids infuriated King Philip II of Spain, who demanded that Queen Elizabeth I stop supporting Drake. But she secretly encouraged him. Sweating sickness was a mystery killer. A bizarre disease called the English sweat struck repeatedly, killing healthy people within hours. Symptoms included fever, chills, and profuse sweating, and it terrified the Tudors. No one knew its cause. Modern theories suggest a hunter virus. Henry VIII fled London multiple times to avoid it. When Queen Elizabeth I, the Virgin Queen, died on March 24, 1603, having produced no heir, it marked the end of the Tudor dynasty. Instead of a succession crisis or civil war, power smoothly passed to James VI of Scotland, who became James I of England, starting the reign of the Stuarts. This united England and Scotland under one monarch for the first time, known as the Union of the Crowns of 1603.